Break the old habits and form new ones. Get away from that old way of eating to your new way of eating. Back to the prime weight at 60 years old, and I don't think I look 60 years old, that ability to say, hey, I literally got back to my 20s and 30s weight, and here's what I did. You have to find what works for you. You might be able to go, okay, this guy's doing this, so I can try this, but that's all you can do. You can't go, oh, this person's eating a stick of butter a day, so I'm going to do this and it's going to work. Or I'm going to just eat a whole bunch of Parmesan cheese because he said it works for his gallbladder. I'm definitely that. Men have to be men. Waiting for the hate on that one. Raise your kids and teach them what you know and stand up for it.
Okay, good morning, everybody. We have today with us our minimalist carnivore, apparently. Chad, how are you this morning?
Doing good, man. Doing good.
Yeah, where are you located, Chad?
Phoenix, Arizona these days.
Yeah, nice and hot part of the world. I lived in Surprise for a couple of years. I lived it, know what it's like. So anyway, it's good to have you. Good to have you today. I guess we'll just get started by, maybe just sharing a little bit about your background.
Basically, I'm 60 years old and started off actually living in the Northwest, actually up near your area, out in Paulsbo, if you know the Kitsap Peninsula.
Yeah,
so I went to high school there.
That's a little Norwegian town, right?
Yeah.
Been there, yeah.
Yeah. So I lived out that way basically through high school. My dad was a pilot, so we traveled a lot and went back and forth to the Hawaiian Islands a lot and ended up moving there for, like I say, my 20s and lived there through my 40s. And I taught scuba diving for about 15 years and had a lung issue where the sulfur dioxide in the air, the volcanic gases, started getting me sick, which is a weird thing. You find out like bronchial related problems in the islands are threefold of all the other states. So it made me move back to the mainland where I basically just gained a ton of weight. I wasn't active. I wasn't diving, riding bikes every day, doing stuff, and ballooned up to, I quit weighing myself at 275 pounds somewhere in my 50s because I figured if I didn't weigh myself, I didn't have to look at it. But basically when I moved back to the mainland, I became a photographer because I'd always done photography, like even back to yearbook class and all that stuff. One of my other photographer friends had gained a lot of weight like I had and found this thing called Keto. And that was about five years ago, I think, for me now, 4 or 5 years ago. And it sounded like a science experiment, but I went ahead and tried it. Didn't really work because I think there were too many alternatives. And you even mentioned this on a video like last week. I think the problem is, I can have teriyaki chicken. It's just keto teriyaki chicken. And I can have keto barbecue sauce and I can have keto burgers. And there was just, all I did is transpose sugar and cane for stevia in a leaf. So I was still eating sweeteners, still eating junk. Decided to start looking hard. I realized it wasn't working. And then he found this thing called Carnivore. And that was just over 3.5 years ago. Obviously, I found you. I found Barry. And I forgot a couple other people. I think Laura Spath was on then too. And she was more, I think, like ketovore stuff. And man, it worked. Because keto thing, I never really moved, but I felt a little better. And once the carnivore hit, within a year, I was down to where I'm at now at 178 pounds, which is where I was at. I'm 5'11", to give you an idea. And that's where I was all the time in the islands teaching scuba. I was always at 178. And it's just mind-boggling that just diet can do that.
Yeah, over 100 pounds. So that's totally awesome. Like I said, I would say I'm shocked, but I just see it all the time. So it's great. It does work. And so I'm just wondering, the lung issues, the hypersensitivity of the volcanic ash or whatever was floating in the air. Have your lungs improved? Or basically,
it's the sulfur dioxide that gets it. And again, because I was scuba diving and I used to be a big breath hold diver, because that's a big thing, is what they call free diving. So I used to be able to hold my breath for over 4 minutes pretty easily and go over 100 feet deep. So I always had really good lungs. I did have allergies all my life, and carnivores basically probably cured 98% of my allergies, which is something that even when I was in my 20s and 30s in prime shape, I never had. So the moment I moved here, within about 1 week, I was doing better and breathing better. But I was on this constant mix out there of albuterol and Q-var-80, which is like a localized steroidal inhalant for the lung. So obviously the albuterol opens it up, gets the Q-var in deeper. And I don't know how many of those things I had, but I basically had to live on that stuff for a couple of years. And I finally found a great doctor that just said, hey, here's your choice. Live on this junk or move.
It's interesting how not being able to breathe is terrifying, really. You think about that. I mean, it's just you can't breathe. And it's such a frustrating thing. And a lot of people, as you mentioned allergies, and a lot of people have seen that same sort of phenomenon, that they're cat allergies or things like that get better. Sometimes they go away. And then I think there's this underlying systemic inflammation that you have a hair trigger sensitivity to. And then the insult leads to all these issues with that. Being 275 pounds at least, since you didn't weigh yourself, scale it, it'll go away type of problem. It's just so men tend to do, we ignore it. If I ignore this big hole in my head, it'll go away, I'm sure. What just overall global sort of, you mentioned the lung issues, but what was your global sense of health? Were there just multiple things? I imagine when you're 100 pounds overweight.
It was pretty bad. And I think, I was going to say it was pretty bad. For me, coming from being this lean, ripped dive instructor on Maui, who was also really hardcore bicyclist, it was mentally devastating. The mental anguish that I knew I was in this position and it was really horrible, I think beat me up more than the physical. The first, I would say maybe up to 240, 250 pounds, I thought, oh, I'm just big. How the excuses come out of people. Oh, I'm just big. I'm okay. I can still lift. I can do things. But I had to quit riding road bikes because that's, in my opinion, too big to ride road bikes the way I wanted to ride road bikes. And you're a fitness guy. It's like with your rowing or weightlifting, if you had gotten to that point where you couldn't do it the way you wanted, it's that mental anguish on you that you're like, oh, so if you put that away, you don't feel like you're failing at that. And the physical ailments, just a lot of back pain, a lot of knee pain. Of course, my allergies flared up. Although I was cured of my lung issue from that, the allergies had flared up to the point, once again, I was back on albuterol and Q-var-80 for the allergies, and constant sinusitis infections that would basically nail me for the next 5 days, where I'd have to end up basically on the couch, not breathing well. I couldn't go out and do things I wanted, couldn't go out hiking, even just doing basic yard work. So the physical ailments were everything that you know with obesity. And the mental ones, I'm focusing a lot on the mental. I think a lot of people don't understand it's a mental, coming out of this fat side of you is pretty tough. Especially, and I can't say this because I was maybe chunky in high school, but not to my senior year, where I just became really insane shape. So even though I was bigger, I was only in high school. I was still one of those dudes that was 5'11" and 200 and maybe 10 pounds, but I was on a hack squat machine. I could do almost 1,000 pounds. So I was just one of those huge dudes. Like when you saw pictures of you in your younger years, you were probably still strong, but you weren't the same kind of energy strong you are now. Yeah. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. It's interesting. There is a mental side of obesity. And when you think about obesity, how it impacts, it's not just having extra fat tissue, but it's a metabolic issue. But it clearly affects the brain, and it clearly leads to just compromised brain function. There's no other way, a better way. It's whether it's mood, whether it's cognitive ability, whether it's all kinds of things, decision making. And we see that it's interesting. We've seen studies out there showing that continually eating ultra processed food actually causes your brain to change in a way that you want to eat it even more. And it's basically an addiction for sure. What about those around you? I don't know if your family, whatever.
I've got
know your situation.
2 kids, a wife, been married 24 years, 2 kids. They're now 14 and 19. For me, I have a lot of faith. I'm a Christian guy, but I never felt like suicidal or anything, but I was horribly depressed. I knew that suicide just messes up everybody around you and would be a stupid thing. So to make that clear, I was never in that state of, oh, this is anguishing. I was like, how do I get out of this? And I tried the fat, sick, nearly dead juicing garbage that basically destroyed me. I tried the green thing. I tried the small plate thing. I got really good at stacking food really high. That's about the things I learned from all those other stupid diets. I read the blood type book thing and it worked, but it made me think, oh, this is why I'm craving peanut butter. And that wasn't the truth. So I did try a lot of things to get out. I'm very analytical about the way I do things. I test things on myself because that's the only way you can do it. The people around me, it was hard because if we go back 5 years ago, my kids then would have been 9 and 14. I'm the sweaty dad, like a lot of other fat dads. And that's just the truth for you fat dads out there, man. You're like the ones that are like, oh, trying to take your kids somewhere, especially in Phoenix in the summer, go in the park. You can't even do anything with them. You can't play on the playgrounds with them. You can't do everything that you should be able to do with them. So I tried. I was surrounded by love and I love my family. So that was never a side. But the mental hate of myself for getting in that position and dropping from that good in shape person to the out of shape person was my issue.
Yeah, it's got to be. And some people have injuries or something like that where it seriously puts a damn. I've been very fortunate in my life that I've never had any major injuries. I've got a little bit of a neck injury right now, but I'm still training and doing everything, even though it's a little bit painful. But one of the things that it's funny, I just put out a little video this morning on my YouTube channel talking about the role of men in mentoring their kids, and your kids look up to you as a hero when they're little, particularly. And if you're, like I said, a cupcake addict, what kind of message are they getting? So it's one of those things where you kind of think about in retrospect. So as parents, what message do we send to our children when we can't even control our own food addiction and we're physically not where we should be? So good for you for getting out of that. You mentioned you found a doctor that told you to basically move or keep sucking down on inhalers. Were you still seeing healthcare providers as you're going through this rapid weight loss? Was that part of that?
Not really. If I was sick, I had one doctor for a while that I would go in and I said, hey, here's what I know works on me. The albuterol and the Cubar 80 and this kind of thing. And I'd usually tell them, I'm pretty in tune with what's going on in my body. Not that I'm medical, but I had some EMS stuff way back in a life long ago. And because of the diving, I did a lot of first aid and medic training stuff. So I have a pretty good sense of when I'm actually sick. So I would get sick, I would figure it out. I would go into clinics mostly and just say, hey, this is where I'm at.
Yeah, I want to just do the blood type diet. I always laugh about that because when people ask me about carnivore, I said, yeah, the blood type diet, if you got red blood, you're good for carnivore. And if you got green blood, go vegan. So maybe a few Vulcans might choose that route. But what blood type were you, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, O positive.
You're O positive. So you would fall into, I'm an O negative guy. So I was, you're supposed to be eating meat. But I've seen so many people that are A and B and AB, and it's just silly with that.
And we know the percentages of groups of people that live together are not always 100%. It might be based heavily on, say, an O positive culture or clan of people, but there's going to be some other people in there. And what? Did they just eat the berries? I don't know. It's just stupid.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that still, I think it's fading away. It's falling back into history, but there's still people that kind of occasionally reference me. I mean, about 6, 7 years ago, it's pretty popular, and I think it's mostly faded away. Let me ask you, so your minimalist carnivore, where does that come from? What is the story behind that?
Have you ever heard of minimalism? Just a small amount of stuff?
Yeah, sure I have. Yeah, so I was wondering how you tied that in.
Up until I moved, I literally lived out of a few bags and traveled around. Like I spent a year in the Caribbean and I just basically packed up my 3 bags and headed to the Caribbean for a year and teaching scuba down there. And when I met my wife, I was living in a 420 square foot typical Maui condo. And even when we got married, our place was only 720 square feet. So I tend to be one of those people that I'm satisfied with the same 7 shirts, 2 pair of shorts that are the same, 2 pair of pants that are the same, 2 pair of shoes that are the same. Some of those people are.
Yeah. I quite honestly, for me, it's the same thing. I had a decent meal, access to a gym. You see, I'm wearing friggin' sweatpants
Yeah.
and cut off t-shirt half the time. So I'm not really all that concerned with a lot of, I don't know, materialistic stuff. I like eating good meat. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So let's just, for a carnivore diet, what do you eat? What are you eating on a carnivore diet?
Over the years, I actually did a pretty good video on how I changed over 3.5 years. I used to vary my cuts of meat when I started, and I would say I'm pretty strict. These days, I'm mostly chuck and then ribeye. And the chuck I do sous vide probably half the time. And then if I get the thin chuck steaks, I just grill them and either eat them. And if there's some tough bits, I'll throw them in an Instant Pot for just 5 minutes just to soften them up a bit. I don't really like long cooked crock pot style chuck roast that much. And then the ribeye. And I tend to be really rare, like on the blue side of rare for my meat. While before, if I go back to the beginning, my trip up coming out of keto into carnivore was, hey, pork rinds are carnivore, sour cream's carnivore, lots of stuff is carnivore. And there was a lot of that push. You remember it probably quite well. 3.5 years ago, it's, hey, you can have your carnivore nachos and you can have your stuff. So I did a little bit of that. And again, I know that's what messed me up in keto, so I got out of it. But if we jump back even 2.5 years, I'll still eat ground beef once in a while, but I was looking for things like hanger or tri-tip or just different cuts of meat. So I would say I'm getting more and more narrow over.
Yeah, there's obviously, and I'm not going to fault anybody for doing it. There's so many chaffles and all these different little carnivore concoctions you can make. And technically, yeah, and like some people still enjoy being in the kitchen and making creations and cooking for their family. And sometimes they like variety. But at the end of the day, for me, I'm like, just give me a damn steak and I'm good. It's just, okay, that's boring. It may be boring for you, but I like it. And that's what I want. And it's just one of those things. It's the sense of variety, or almost the expectation for variety these days, is because when you go to the grocery store and there's freaking 10,000 products, and that didn't exist. That's a novel situation for the human existence. Prior to even mass transport or refrigeration, you had, what do you got? What do you got growing around you? What animals are there? And so you don't have a lot of variety. And of course, we're just going more and more that direction to where ultra processed and 75 different ingredients.
Thing on the tables, I'm going to I do say to a lot of people, because I came from this, I guess I turned into a carb addict once I moved here. The only thing that I ate in the islands a lot of was rice, because it's an island staple. So I fished every day and we did a lot of hunting. So I was literally eating a lot of fish and a lot of meat and rice. I think they are handy for people in that first month or two if they're trying to break away from those old addictions. I'm like, hey, if you're going to cave and have some chips, don't do that. Keep some pork rinds around, but don't binge. If you've got a problem, try to get away from them as quick as you can. But I think they can be a good transition food. If I gotta have a burger, I just have to have a burger, we'll make it with a chaffle bun. That's the only thing I think where they're really are handy for, is to help people break. As I keep saying in these videos, break the old habits and form new ones. Get away from that old way of eating to your new way of eating, and use them as a transitionary item, but don't rely on them and try to get away. Break it. Now, if you want to bring them back in a year for variety, I think it is okay, as long as you're still in control of them and they don't become a binge item. I don't know what you think about that, but
yeah, I mean, I tell people when I first go carnivore, variety, whatever variety you need to stay on it. Just get used to not having bread on your plate or whatever, fruits and vegetables or whatever meal or whatever juice. You just get used to that. And if you have to use spices and seasonings and different types of meats and concoctions, it's fine. And then, like I said, you eventually narrow things down. Most people will narrow down to something that they find that really works for them. And then some people are all strict red meat, salt water, whatever. And then some people will, like myself, I've gone several years, nothing but red meat and water, and I'm fine on that. But then sometimes I'll do a little dairy, sometimes I'll do some eggs, sometimes I'll do that. But generally 95% of the time I'm just eating steak or ground beef or whatever it might be. And that has been very sustainable for me. You mentioned on your channel, so I assume you have YouTube or something. I'm not sure I just started it up just over a month ago. I think 2 of my videos are showing 2 months. So I started up, but I've done pretty well. Like I'm at
7,400 people already in just over 1 month. And one of the videos is like at 150,000, and other ones at like 50, 60. So I think the messaging that I'm getting out, obviously for a small channel starting, I think that's pretty good growth. So it seems to be working. And I just decided to start spreading. I've got 3.5 years behind me, like you have. How many years are you at this now?
I'm getting close. I'm getting close to 8. Yeah, I'm getting close to 8 now.
8. Okay.
I started in 2016. Next year will be end of this year will be my 8th year, just starting my 8th year.
Yeah. That's for me. My end of year will be my 4th. Yeah. And I think also I hit the mark. I'm not really trying to step on toes because everybody has a different journey, but I'm back to the prime weight at 60 years old. And I don't think I look 60 years old for that ability to say, hey, I literally got back to my 20s and 30s weight, and here's what I did. I did figure out to cut out the spices. I cut out chicken. I cut out pork along the way because it just became non-satiating. It just became an empty nothing for me. The only thing I'll throw a twist in here, I lost my gallbladder about 4 months into this. And I still don't... Oh, it's a vestigial organ. You don't need it. Yeah, you do. It would help. But what happened is, according to the surgeon, basically I had lost it because I had become so obese and I wasn't using it because I was living on carbs when it was just sludged up. And it was a really painful experience. I think one of the most painful things I've ever had, I used to race motocross and I had a bad accident where I cracked my ribs off my backbone, punctured a lung, ruptured my spleen and kidney, which is a pretty bad accident. And the gallbladder, I think, was more painful when I went into the hospital. And luckily, Mayo Clinic's close. So I went in the Mayo Clinic and the surgeons, there is no way you're saving this. It is so blocked up and bad. And even she told me, you got this because you got fat. This is not the carnivore diet that's doing it, which was an interesting statement for her to say. This is healthy. What you're doing is going to work. You're just going to have to work around it. The one thing I do for the gallbladder, and I've been testing this for 3.5 years, ox bile doesn't work, TUDCA doesn't work. I hate spreading out my meals. I prefer OMAD and just being done with it. Or 2MAD, if I have to eat later on in the day, I'll eat. I just eat when I'm hungry and eat till I'm satiated. But is Parmesan cheese, like 3 to 4 ounces of Parmesan cheese, because actual Italian Parmesan has to be A2 and it has to be raw dairy to be actual. I tried goat cheeses, I tried A2 cheeses, I tried all this stuff. And I guess it's the calcium, you might know this, it's the calcium in it that kind of makes people constipated. So I don't know if that's part of what's helping me become regular, but it is amazing. It's the one thing that's just totally blown me away and worked for the no gallbladder situation where I can eat as much heavy fatty meat, OMAD, as I want with no issues.
Yeah, interesting. I've not heard someone talk about Parmesan cheese as a key, but if you look at it, there's a couple. Yeah, like if you like anybody who's ever had a bunch of antacids, like the calcium-based antacids will get constipated. So clearly there's something there. And then also we know that cheese in general has these casomorphines, which and opioid narcotics, which is similar, it acts on the same receptors, tend to slow the bile down. So it could be the combination of those things. In Parmesan might be there for, but I'm glad you found it. And there are a lot of people that don't have gallbladders. We take them out. I can remember when I was practicing as an orthopedic surgeon, I was in there doing my knee scopes, and in the next room over, my general surgery colleague was just ripping out gallbladders all day. I was like, how many gallbladders you got today, Kevin? He goes, I got 6. I got 6 knee scopes, and we were just beside him ripping out gallbladders and me doing knee scopes. But it's just, we just rip them out so quickly now. And because we got the laparoscopic, and it's such better than the old days where they split you open and they have to pull it out that way. But you're right. I think, like I said, we need a gallbladder. Our gallbladder is there for a reason. We need to grow an organ for the hell of it. It's there to aid primarily in fat digestion, which would indicate we are designed to eat fat. And this is what it does.
Yeah.
The nice thing is that the common bile duct over time will often expand to accommodate that excess bile that's being dumped out of the liver, and it becomes a little reservoir itself. So you almost get like a pseudo gallbladder over time. So when you ingest that fat, the little duct opens up and you dump bile into the duodenum anyway. So you can definitely do carnivore without a gallbladder. Like initially, sometimes, like you mentioned, I often talked, I don't think the ox bile works that well. I think often spacing the meals often helps for a lot of people. But if you don't want to do that and you found the Parmesan cheese hack, I'll have to see this is why I love doing this, interviewing all these people, because I learn, because I want to try Parmesan cheese. It's a new little thing.
And I started doing interviews because I just love hearing all these weird things. And it's the same thing that you have to find what works for you. You might be able to go, okay, this guy's doing this, so I can try this, but that's all you can do. You can't go, oh, this person's eating a stick of butter a day, so I'm going to do this and it's going to work. Or I'm going to just eat a whole bunch of Parmesan cheese because he said it works for his gallbladder, where something might work for somebody else. And they might like spreading the meals out. I think I might be like you watching some videos. I just like to eat, have it done. And if I do get hungry because of a hard day, I'll go ahead and have a little more later. But I don't like the trying to time meals or spread them out. I just want to eat when I'm hungry and be done with it.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a pain. It's like I said, one of the nice things about this is you can literally eat once, twice a day and be done. And that for some people is the simplicity of that and the time management, saving time, because you're thinking about when you're on often these carb-based diets, and you even got dietitians telling you to eat every 3 hours. You need to keep your blood glucose constant. So you're like, you think about it, you're awake for 16 hours a day. You've got to eat every 3 hours. You're eating at least five times a day, that takes up a lot of time, effort, and it's not necessarily the best thing for us. So back to the family thing. I know we talked a little bit, but I'm sure they've noticed you losing 100 pounds. It's hard to hide that. But are they supportive of what you're doing with diet? Are they like, Dad's crazy, or are they like,
oh,
hey?
no, they're all for it. They're pretty good about it. I'd like to get them eating healthier. They don't totally. I'm trying to get my wife more to do clean keto. I don't think she'll ever become a carnivore. Now, my 14-year-old boy he loves ribeye. So whenever I have ribeye, he's all for it. He doesn't like the chuck so much. Oh, maybe tomorrow. That's his cue for no, I'm not going to eat it. But he eats a lot of ground beef, still a lot of steak. At 14 years old, he's basically the same height as me now at 5'11". And I keep telling him, eat more meat, man. Just, if I'd known what I know now, wouldn't you, if you were 14 and realized, hey, if I went this way for life, what would have happened? So I'm trying to be this. You've talked to enough people. Everybody out there knows this. It has to come from within inside. This way of eating and this way of health has to be from you inside. So I can coax him all I want. He's just got to decide when he wants to do it.
And to be fair, most of us came to this through a point of pain. It was like, it's not like I'm going to voluntarily give up ice cream and candy if I can get away with it and just feel good.
Yeah.
But it's when that starts to add up, and it's okay. I'm in my case, I was almost damn 50 years of age. I was 49 years of age. And it was like, I probably 42 when I realized I needed to change my diet, but it took me another 7 years to wind my way into this sort of all meat sort of way. And yeah, but if I'd have been 42 and had nothing wrong with me, I would have continued eating in the way I was. But it just, for good or bad, that discomfort said, hey, I got to change things. And some people, their threshold is really high. They've got to be like, I've seen people, like I've literally cut off people's legs and they wouldn't change their diet. I'm like, how much more do you need before you're going to change? Some people never do. Some people just get a little bit out of shape and are like, F this, I'm done. I'm gonna just change my life.
And that's what happened for me. I had tried these different things that we're told is healthy. We're told the juicing's healthy. We're told the green agenda is healthy. We're told eating less and the old I can't even say it with a straight face. The calories in, calories out is how you do it. Oh, just reduce that so you're hungry all the time and move more. We're told all these things. I'm preaching the choir with you. It's about the proper diet, proper nutrients, and getting it done. So once I found it, I was like, yeah, I'm set. And obviously at 3.5 years into this, with getting more narrow on what I eat, it's not because I'm closing in. It's just because I'm finding this is what works optimum. And I'm one of those people, again, that minimalist side of me. Like once I find a shirt I like, I'm happy with the same shirt every day. Why? I don't care. And it's like kids. Pepperoni pizza could be a kid's favorite. Throw something with a bunch of mushrooms and onions on there, that kid's not going to eat it. He's going to choose the pepperoni. So when I see a chuck or a ribeye, I'm like, yeah, that's the meat I like. So why would I want this other kind of meat when tri-tip's okay, it's good stuff, but yourself, what would you rather have? If somebody laid a tri-tip out in front of you or a ribeye, what are you going to take?
Most of the time a ribeye for sure. Yes, if I'm just purely going on what I enjoy the most and what tastes best to me, it's going to be a ribeye every time. Now, if I was like, hey, I'm trying to lean out, I'm going to try tips a little bit, and I might make those decisions. But the visceral, primitive brain on me says, give me a damn ribeye, give me the fat. And I
or
think
you go to a Brazilian steakhouse, you get to try a little bit of everything.
That's because they bring it there, and they do a pretty good job. And it's very similar. But you go to get the pecans and bottom, the sirloin, the different top sirloins and bottom sirloins and things like that, which are quite good. As far as, so you're 60, you're a little bit older than me. I'm soon to be 57.
Yeah.
You're in heart attack prime age, right? This is the 50s and 60s are like a killing field for heart attacks.
Yeah.
And this is when someone in the 70s, but most people are dropping dead of heart attacks right now. What are your thoughts on that? Are you worried about that? You got a primary care doctor saying, oh my God, all that cholesterol and saturated fat, you're going to have a heart attack. What's your thought on that? Because clearly you feel better. You lost 100 pounds. Quality of life is undoubtedly improved, but there's always this sort of lingering doubt, maybe not by you, but other people. Hey, this is bad. You're going to attack. What are your thoughts around that stuff?
I think I'm back to the size and weight of my 20s and 30s, and I wasn't worried about it then. I feel as good. I don't have joint pains. I don't have all these issues. I can wake up in the morning totally healthy. I do buy the theory, and you've heard Chaffee mention, this is probably what a 60-year-old should look like, or you're what a 57, I think you said 57, it should look like. We shouldn't be looking like these old people that are using walkers and helpers. And granted, they might have a certain reason for that, but I think a lot of it does come down to the life they lived up to that point. When we look at these people from other places in the 1800s that we have some records of, the Native Americans, when you look at those people in their age, they were just insane shape and they were still productive. So that's what I think. I literally look at history and I look at what we've been through as a people over even 2,000 years. And we know that there are records of people living a lot longer. And even today, when we find rare tribes, we can find these people in those tribes are 80, 90 years old, and they're still productive. To me, until I have something that says, hey, this isn't, my heart, something's not right, or, this joint pain isn't healing, I'll go in and check it out. I'm that way. When I went in for the surgery, I asked her, I said, how does my blood panel look? Does everything? And she's like, no, you're looking good. She goes, for what you've been through and this weight you lost, you're doing really well. So I'll go in at the end of the year and probably get blood work done because it'll be a good video. And people want to know all about blood work on Carnivore, don't they? I'm sure you get it. Oh, what's your blood work like? I'm sure they're hoping for some little sliver of something they can pick on. But I think some people are also curious in a genuine way.
Yeah. And just back to the gallbladder, in case people don't know that, rapid weight loss is often associated with cholecystitis, where your gallbladder gets inflamed and irritated. So that's one of the concerns around rapid weight loss and losing 100 pounds is a lot of people have gallbladder issues with that. And that's just, I think, part to the fact that you've damaged it so badly previous to that. And now that it just does that. And the issue around aging, I'm 100% in agreement. I think I should not be exceptional as a soon to be 57-year-old man. I should be the norm, honestly. This is, and to me, in my own mind, I don't think I'm doing anything that special. It's just everybody around you is just giving up and succumb to their bad habits. And if we don't have those things, and it's interesting when you look at the history of humanity, and we're all hearing about life expectancy, really, there were always people that lived a long time. Even going back to the ancient Greeks, and you got these guys that are living in their 70s and 80s, these famous philosophers and scientists back then. But it's just that we've now limited what kills people young, infectious disease, sanitation stuff. So we have less people dying younger and more people reaching older age. So then the life expectancy goes up. But it's not all of a sudden the oldest people are now 130. It's still, most old people are dying in their 80s and 90s. So a few of them make it over 100, but that was always the case. Most people that got really old, 80, 90, then they dropped dead. And even in caveman times, there's pretty significant evidence of people that lived well into their 6th, 7th, and sometimes 8th decade. And I think Yeah, and now we're seeing in the U.S. for the first time in the last, I think, 3 years in a row, our life expectancies drop, and
that's what's scary. And I think you hit it on the head with this average life expectancy. I spent, like in the Caribbean, I knew people who maybe had 5 children, but only 2 or 3 of them made it. Infant mortality is huge when you don't have the modern medicine to take care of it. And if I needed some kind of surgery, a person like yourself who's a surgeon or whatever is what I want doing the work. I know from the days in the fire department that I did for a while, if I'm in a car accident, I don't want you showing up. I want an EMS guy showing up. I want those people who run on the FD and on the rigs to extract me. My 15 years of working on the water, if you're on Maui and you're having a near drowning incident, you want me swimming out. Not everybody has their path. And I think the doctors are looked on as this, oh, they know everything about this. You're trained to be whatever your specialty is, but we know they don't get trained in diet and health enough. And I think that's where the system also is lacking, where this is where everybody can speak up and at least share what they've done. All the other carnivores can speak up and say, hey, this is what's worked for me. Check it out, try it. I'm living proof of this happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And there, like you said, you have a specialty, particularly in medicine. I certainly wasn't a kidney specialist, so I would not take it upon myself to manage someone's kidney disease. I was taking care of musculoskeletal health and fixing, replacing joints and fixing broken bones and whatnot. And this is a thing that, like I said, I tell people, even as a physician, when I was practicing, I would learn from my patients, and I still learn from all you guys. And I'm blessed with a pretty good memory. And so I put all this stuff in my brain and I'm usually able to recall it. And it's just, you get to learn a lot more. It's funny. I liken, like, my son and I were coming back. He was coming back from his soccer practice. I was listening to this Joe Rogan clip, and he goes, "Dad, Joe Rogan's got to be one of the smartest guys around." I said, "Why do you say it?" Because he talks to all these really super smart people. And I think there's something to that. You at least get exposed to a lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
And however you obtain it doesn't mean you have to have a PhD or university degree, but you can obtain a lot of knowledge just by keeping your ears open and talking to people that are the experts on these things. And a lot of people, you are the expert in your own body, right? And there's people that are like the other 60-year-olds that probably in situations, there's some overlap there for sure. So you can start to see all these sort of patterns emerging, and it's fun to see that. But and I always when I remember, I try to ask this question because people always go, well, you're just biased. And I said, the negatives that you've encountered on a carnivore diet, are there any? If so, what were they? How did you deal with them? I mean, because most people say it's generally it's all unicorns and rainbows, but sometimes people have issues, and it's fair to talk about them so we can be aware of it, but maybe not. I don't know. Any negatives that you've encountered? Obviously, you had your gallbladder out, so that would be one for sure.
Yeah. And I think really there are no negatives to me. I don't think about food. I used to be a foodie and always talk with my friends about making whatever foods. And not that I miss that, because I just talk about how good I can prepare steaks these days and the different ways I can prepare them. There really is no negative downside to me. Shopping's easier, cooking's easier, eating's easier once a day, and I'm done. If somebody wants to pull a negative, I could see maybe they're saying, oh, the variety. But again, let's go back to a kid. If you've offered a teen pepperoni pizza and burgers for his whole life, he'd probably be like, yeah, that's awesome. And he'd be happy. So me eating my favorite foods anyway isn't a downside to variety. I've never liked vegetables. I've always hated them. I was a bread, rice, and pasta dude. That was my downfall, is the carbs percent.
I definitely was never a vegetable guy. I just never liked them. Even trying my best, I was on a ketogenic diet and just trying to choke down these big salads, these Marxists and big ass salad bowl things. He would talk. No. I was like, man, this stuff sucks. The only thing good on there was the eggs and the bacon and the dressing I put on there, the oil or whatever. That type of stuff is what was was interesting.
I've heard you say this before too. Like, my kids, I'll have 2 bites of their birthday cake. Yeah. Whatever. Oh, dude, 2 bites isn't going to hurt me from 56 years of eating junk. And it's celebrating their birthday. And I don't crave. I don't go, oh, I want a whole piece. Oh, I want more. It's 2 bites. I'm good. It's fun. And that's really the only outside thing that I just don't want or care for it. And I know a lot of people say, oh, I can go down the snack aisle now and not want this. And then they're talking about pork rinds and sour cream. To me, again, that gets back to all you did is transpose your chips to now pork rinds and sour cream. And I'm not trying to step on toes again. I got to be careful saying that, but I think you know where I'm trying to go with this. People like either they do that textural variety and the flavor variety of food, where I think some of us really don't care about it as much. And I think the longer you do this, and the only reason I say this, and maybe even asking you a question, from when you were looking back to where I am now at almost 4 years to where you are now, and I'm at the point now where I truly left all those pork rinds and things because I just don't care about texture and I don't care about the variety. I'm satisfied where I'm at. Do you think you've gotten even more so in that 4 to 8 years? And where were you at my point, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I think early on I was able to leave that stuff. I think, and some of that I was just like, because you're on social media, you can't help but being impacted by, like I said, the Chaffle thing. Everybody was talking about this. I'll try it and see what it's like. And I sat there for, I think, a week or so eating them and trying different varieties and making little sandwiches like ham and cheese Chaffle sandwiches. And then I got bored of that. It was just too much work for me. I was just like, I'd still just give me a damn steak. And that's still how I am today.
Yeah.
The interesting thing you said, you're talking about kid, if you told a kid, hey kid, for the rest of your life, you get to eat all the pizza and ice cream that you want every day for the rest of your life. And it's interesting. I remember watching a guy who was going to prove that he could eat ice cream every day and be on a diet. And he would say, every day I'm going to eat at least, I don't know, it was like a quart of ice cream. It was a significant amount. And he had protein powder and some other stuff, but that was his diet. He did manage to lose weight, but he got about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks into eating ice cream every single day. And he was literally like this, I can't stand this stuff anymore. I'm sick of it. I'm tired of eating ice cream. Whereas I've gone years eating steak every day and I never get tired of that. I think that even though you think you would like to eat this stuff, when the reality plays out, you just don't. And he was eating variety of ice cream with all the different flavors. It was like every flavor you can imagine. He was but even still, he could not find to where he enjoyed it. But I don't get that with steak. If you told me for the rest of your life you had to eat a ribeye steak every day, I'd be like, okay, I'm totally fine. I've already done it for damn near seven plus years.
Yeah.
So I think there's a sort of a different perception on some of this stuff.
There was an interesting thing. I was talking with another carnivore guy about coming up with some fun ideas for videos and things. And we were talking about all the junk food. And I'm like, I wonder how many flavors of Oreos there are. And I typed it in good old Google. And I think it said there's 192 flavors of Oreos now. And this is where we're at. It's ridiculous it's just ridiculous that you can't say anymore. The fact that there's that many flavors, specialties. This is a rare Oreo. And I guess the most expensive Oreo was some they printed. If you ever heard this, sold for $100,000, one Oreo cookie, because it was some weird printed edition of some weird. Isn't this, if you look into it, it's just insane where we're at as a society that there's 192 varieties of Oreos. And they made some special editions that were like a Willy Wonka ticket. I guess it was thrown in some packages. And people are literally auctioning off these Oreos. This is where we're at as a society.
Yeah, I can remember, and I haven't had an Oreo cookie in, I don't know how many years, decades now, I think, or something like that. And I can remember they had the double stuff. I was like, oh, you got twice as much. Whatever the hell that stuff is in there. It's some god-awful concoction that tastes good, but it's probably literally poison. And I was walking through the grocery store somewhere. I think it was on Laguna Beach. I remember I was walking through I think they have a Whole Foods there. And I think it was there. I saw cotton candy flavored Oreos. And I said, I remember taking a picture of that because this is ridiculous. And yet you're right. There are probably people out there that have wanted to try or have tried all 192 of those flavors. And it's just that. And they're just like, I've got to have more variety. Because the Captain Crunch flavor one didn't do it. It wasn't as good as I thought it was. So I'm going to try the next one. And we have Snickers bar flavored cereal or something like that. And it's just like you're making artificial food taste like other artificial food because people are so bored with that. And I look at it, I'm like, I'm still just eating plain old same steak that was available 6,000 years ago. It's just,
Yeah.
I was like, okay. So we are in a crazy place with that, and it's getting worse, and I feel really bad. So let me ask you, you said you got relatively still kids in the house, young enough. They're exposed to God knows what with social media and everything, but even the food is just, it's terrifying. You think about how hard it is to navigate. You literally have doctors. I remember there's this doctor, she calls herself Skeptical Doctor. She's a vegan, of course, and she's saying, I think the future of health food is going to be ultra processed food because we can make it healthy. And I think, what is the incentive for a ultra processed food manufacturer to make you a healthy food that you're not going to overeat? That's their business model. Their business model is to be addicted to this stuff. And so why would they design that stuff? So to me, it's just putting your faith in. The USDA just came out with this 91% ultra processed food, quote unquote, healthy diet, which is just, to me, it's just, and we get people that are buying off. We get all this. It's like we're in make-believe world, like making shit up. And it's just, what are we supposed to believe at this point? It's crazy times. And I think carnivore is one of those things that makes you pull back because your diet is fixed. Your brain maybe is working for the first time correctly in years. You're not susceptible for the nonsense that's out there. Let me ask you, as far as so you said you're new on social media. You've gotten a fairly nice response, which is great. I've always said, hey, the more people get out talking about this, if it's only one or two people talking about it, then people think you're a nut and they can ignore you. But when thousands and thousands of people are out there all singing from the same song sheet, it becomes compelling. And I think we're seeing that. So congratulations on doing that. And I hope you have good luck with that and continue to push hard with that. Have you had any negatives thrown your way because of what you're doing? I do all the time. I get called an idiot every day. People are like, you're an idiot.
There's been a few of the, just because of the growth on the YouTube hitting nothing like you are, but you can imagine still just over 7,000 when the video's at 150,000. It's been pretty small, but there are people that are, I'm here just to laugh at you or whatever, or the kind of typical idiot stuff that they say. In actual real world, and I won't say, during this recent lockdown thing that happened 3 years ago because of a certain sickness, I did get that. And I was already a year into my carnivore journey, right? When I asked the doctor, I said, hey, I did have a history of lung issues. I'd just like to know if I wanted to get some albuterol and Q-bar-80 just in case this does, because the fear around that was so huge. And he looked at me like I was crazy. But the funny thing is, I had no real symptoms. I felt like I worked out one day on my arms and worked out one day on my legs, and that was it. And I was done and over. And so that side, when I asked for a couple of things about that, and it was basically when I told him what I ate. I just eat meat. What? You could tell he was just like looking at me like crazy. A few people have done it. And I know, again, all the carnivores out there who have friends see this great improvement, and you tell them what you do, and then they tell you you're crazy or you're going to get a heart attack or this is so dangerous. And that's the common. So I don't think that's a negative or a pushback. It's just they're truly either brainwashed into thinking this food is so good, or they are just truly happy with where they're at because they're not horribly out of shape, and they do like their hamburger buns for their hamburgers, and they do like their pizza once in a while. I think there's two classes it falls in. But the people that have issues should look really hard when they're sick and in the hospital and things happen to them, and they've seen what you've been through. Like you said, with amputating people's limbs, why don't they open their eyes and go, maybe there's something to this? I don't know. There's that mental side of it again. I think there's a big mental block.
Yeah, it's some people you get to a point where, I remember I had this gal I think she was like a double baloney amputee, diabetic, obese. She needed like a shoulder replacement. I was just like, she's just falling apart. And at some point, you become so disabled, so miserable that you just like, why would I even try to get healthier? Because I just really want to die. This is where you get people that they're just like, I'm just going to gorge myself because it's the only thing that gives me a little bit of relief. And I would rather than do all the work it would take to reverse this, because like you said, once you start chopping off legs, and it's not there, I've met people, literally double amputees, that are out running marathons with artificial. So it's doable, but some of these people, they get so miserable, and the only sliver of hope they have is just that little bit of chocolate they put in their mouth or something like that. And it's such a terrible place to get to that point. Gosh, if you can just, even if you start down that road, that's why, like I said, when you have kids, you have a chance to, because there's a lot of ways it can go. And you got a kid that's maybe they're 10, they're a little bit overweight. You say, he's 10, we'll ignore that. And then you continue to ignore that. And then he's 14 and he's still overweight and he's depressed. And now it just snowballs from there. So I think gosh, if you can intervene early, that's so much better. And even, it doesn't have to be carnivore, but if you get them on there and just say, hey, let's just start eating more meat and real food, and teach them, hey, food does have an impact on not only how your body looks and feels, but your brain and how you function and how you feel. I know it's a bit of a non sequitur rambling, but anyway, it's a good opportunity to get that message.
No, it's true though. You have to, I'm definitely that men have to be men, waiting for the hate on that one, but raise your kids and teach them what you know and stand up for it.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% wholeheartedly. I'll tell you what, Chad, thank you for doing this. And thanks for being about your experience, because it's so important that we do this, because it's changing. We're swimming upstream for sure. It's a long battle, but it's worth fighting. And I'm glad to have you in the fight with me and others. And thanks for doing that.
Yeah.
And just for people that are watching that may want to follow your channel, what is the name of it?
Minimalist Carnivore. So it's at Minimalist Carnivore on YouTube. Okay. And I'm on the Instagram and others, but not too much. I'm mostly focusing on YouTube right now. So that would be the best place to find me and get out from there. And I will say one thing, we're a couple other the smaller channels, we all kind of work together and do a lot of streams. And 3 of us are getting together and starting up a big health thing. And we're going to be calling it Carnivore Strong, about basically putting on, I want to call it good strength, not about show muscle, but just putting on good strength at 60 and what this 60-year-old body can put on. And we're not doing a monthly challenge. It's going to be like, we're going to commit to this for a year, because this is about life change, not, hey, let's do this for 30 days, then switch to this for 30 days. Yeah. So we are going to be doing that, which might be fun to look forward to. And I know I'm going to try to reach out to your people to maybe have you on at some point too, because we want to bring guests on about us. There's one that's 59, another in his late 40s, and myself at 60, all wanting to really get behind the whole community and get these people involved.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. So just whenever it gets the time, let me know, and I'm happy to help in any way.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I got to go do a little consultation, and I got 2 ribeyes waiting on me in a little bit. So anyway, thank you, Chad. Thanks for us, you guys being here.
Thanks so much, man. Good to meet you. Tomorrow.